Hello, Year 10. Another video. This one is focusing on university. And Mrs. Alderson's going to be talking you through lots of different aspects of what life at university would be like, what it would be to apply to university, and why that might be a good idea. But university is not your only option after 18. Now, I know most of you are 15, and this seems like a world away. But actually, your decisions now are going to feed into what you do post 16 in terms of A-level apprenticeships and different college courses. And they, in turn, feed into what you do at 18. So at 18, your choices will be either you're going to go into full-time employment and have a job, or you're going to go to university. But don't discount higher and degree apprenticeships. So degree apprenticeships are where you carry on an apprenticeship after you're 18 and you'll be paid by a company and be debt free to do your degree. So it's certainly something to actually look into and do some research into. But today's presentation with Miss Alderson is going to be looking at university. So I'll let her and I'll pass over on to her.
Okay, so we're going to talk about higher education and a bit about the routes, the options you've got, and a bit about funding as well. Because the thing to be aware of is that although, as Mr. Greens just says, you're thinking about your post-16 options, when you start thinking about what you want to do post-18, being aware of how much things might cost if you go to university and how you might what kind of money you might have available to you is really important now, because you can start making those sorts of plans as a family if that's the route that you want to go down. So I'm going to talk a little bit about higher education, and then I'm going to talk about student finance with you. So in terms of higher education, when you study at post-16, that's a level 3 qualification. So if you're going for A-levels, if you're going for an apprenticeship, or if you're going for a vocational qualification, that's a level 3 qualification. If you move on and study post-18, that's a level 4 qualification. And higher education, we're going to talk about universities and colleges in this section. So in terms of higher education, there's a number of different options you can look at. So you might go for a foundation degree. So if you're wanting to go down the route of art, for example, you might do a foundation year and get loads of different skills and different art kind of forms, and then go on to the degree. Or you might, if you want to go down a science route, for example, you might do a foundation degree and then move on the next year to a degree level. There's higher degree apprenticeships, as Sir's just spoken about. And there's going to be a bit more information in the apprenticeships talk about that one. So if you haven't already watched that, I would definitely recommend doing so. There's a degree where you would study for 3, possibly 4 years at university. A higher national certificate, which also can be studied at college, and a higher national diploma. So all of those things come under the higher education bracket. In terms of why you might choose higher education, there's a number of different reasons to be kind of thinking about. There's loads of social aspects in terms of higher education. So if you go into university, you might get the opportunity to live independently, to move away from home. And certainly when I went to university, that was one of my motivations, making friends for life. That idea of, people you meet at university, being friends that you're going to be with for a long time afterwards. And there's loads of different other social attributes to university. There's a financial element. Obviously, if you are a graduate, so if you've got a degree, often, not always, but often graduates earn more than non-graduates. Obviously, you get to study a subject that you love in depth, and you get to kind of become an expert in a particular area. And in terms of professional, so when you enter the world of work, you have the potential to progress quicker in your career. There are some jobs you can only do if you've got a higher education qualification. So, for example, if you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a vet, if you want to be a teacher, you've got to have a higher education qualification. There's certain skills that employers look for in their employees, things like critical thinking, problem solving, teamwork, and communication. So all of those skills are things that you can develop if you go on to higher education. And if you're talking about graduates, that's somebody who's completed a qualification. I'm going to talk a little bit now about student finance, just to kind of give you a bit of information. Now, for parents and for students, you just need to be aware some of the figures that I'm going to talk about are based on this year, and these change every year. So obviously what we're talking about now, in 2 years' time, when it's the time for you to be thinking about this, these numbers will be different, but it will give you a bit of an overview and an understanding of how it works. So the thing to be aware of, and a lot of these resources that I'm using now are produced by Student Finance England, and there's lots of information you can find out about that in your own time, and we'll send you a link so you can do that. The thing to be aware of is there's no upfront charges, so you don't have to pay for your tuition fees before you go to university. You don't have to kind of do that. We'll tell you a bit more about that as we go through. There are student loans available for different things. So you can get a student loan for your tuition fees, which is called a tuition fee loan. And you can also get a loan for your living costs, and that's called a maintenance loan. And I'll tell you a bit more about both of those. So a maintenance loan is what's called means tested, which means it's based on your household or your family's household income. And as I said, this information is about this academic year, and it does change every year. So if you are choosing to live at home, and in Rotherham, we're really lucky that we've got some very good universities within travelling distance of home. So Sheffield University, Sheffield Hallam, Huddersfield, Leeds, even some of those you can travel to from home. So if you were staying and living at home, you could apply for up to £7,747 for your maintenance costs, so your kind of living costs. If you move away from home and you go and live, in a student accommodation, you can have up to £9,203. And if you live in London, it's a little bit more than that because obviously the costs are higher. So that's your maintenance loan that you might be able to apply for. There's also something called a bursary and a scholarship, and it's worth being aware of this, that different types of bursaries and scholarships available. And basically this is free money. You don't have to pay it back, and different people can claim it for different reasons. So some of these bursaries are talent based. So if you get really good A-level results, for example, or if you're an elite sports person, you might be able to get a bursary and get some money from the university that way. Might be based on household circumstances. It might be in partnership, so some schools work in partnership with the university, and some students are therefore eligible for some of the bursaries that way. And it also, as we said, might be based on academic achievement. So just being aware that you can find all the information about scholarships and bursaries on this website, and again, you can kind of have a look at that link in your own time. Just to be aware of in terms of repayments then. So if you are borrowing money for university, you don't pay it back as soon as you leave university. You start paying back that loan when you earn over a certain amount. And the more you earn, the more you then repay for that loan. So if, for example, you finish university and you earn £20,000 every year, you don't start paying your student loan back at that point. If you earn £29,000, the monthly amount that you pay on that student loan is £25, and that's regardless of how much you've borrowed. That's based on your income. If you earn more than that, so £34,000, for example, it's £62 a month. So it's based on your ability to pay back based on your wage. The payments automatically come out of your wage. So just like it does with a taxation, basically, it will come out of your wage before you start, before you see that money. So you will get it paid automatically out of your wage, and you can see it as a graduate contribution. So it is a little bit like a tax that you pay for you to have gone to university. The thing to be aware of is you only start paying it back, and this is based on this year's figures. You only start paying it back if you earn over £25,725. If you took some time out of your work for maternity leave, or you started earning less than that in your kind of working time, you would then stop paying those repayments until you start earning over that £25,700 figure. So it's based on your ability to pay. If you've still got anything that you still owe after 30 years, anything unpaid is written off. So it's not a lifetime debt. It's something that you would pay for up to 30 years. After that, you would stop paying that extra in terms of repayments. Some students might never pay back the full amount that they borrow. So the way that, we would encourage you to think of a student loan is maybe see it as an investment. It's an investment in your future. It's not seen as a lifelong long debt, and you only start paying it back if you earn over £25,700. You don't pay it until you start earning that amount of money. That just gives you a little bit of an overview, a bit of understanding and of awareness of higher education and the kind of costs and implications involved in terms of student finance. Obviously, if you study post-18, those providers will tell you an awful lot more about that information as you go through.
Thank you, Miss Alderson. I think it's really worth, the reason we've gone through that, guys, is really worthwhile because a lot of people find that the financial side of university is the biggest barrier to them actually thinking, yeah, I might fancy that. So that's the reason we've tried to give you a bit of an insight there as to how it works. I still pay off my student loan now. I don't even see it. It's just on my wage slip. It's like a little tax. It's not even noticeable, really, because you don't ever see the money. And obviously the options that going to university can open up for you might be what you want to go and do in your career. It might not be for everybody, but it's worth knowing that the financial aspect of university should not be a barrier to anybody, no matter what home or household you're coming from. So that's the idea behind the student finance stuff. As I said at the start of this little video, it's really, really worthwhile you knowing where you want to be post-18. Now, again, you don't have to know the exact answer, but it's worth knowing roughly, would I like to go to university? Would I not? I probably didn't make the decision of, yes, I definitely want to go until the latter end of my A-levels. I was a bit in between as to whether I wanted to go or not. So you don't necessarily have to know, definitely I want to do this, but knowing what it would take if that's the angles that you want to go down. So they're the three options at post-18. It's either university, a higher degree apprenticeship, which is definitely worthwhile doing some research into if you can get funded degrees, and employment, obviously going and getting a job. Okay, so thank you very much for listening. Thank you to Mrs. Alderson for presenting that, and I hope that's been of some use to you. Thank you.
Thank you.